What do you try to really gain this week? Obviously, everybody talks about the interviews, but as you guys get into this, and DQ's talked about needing to build up these trenches, how do you look at kind of the O line, D line positions this week?
Well, I think we know that there's players in those groups that can help us, and we're just trying to get more and more information on all those players. Watch them work out, spend time with them individually, just really get more and more comfortable with who they are. And like I said, we know there are players in those groups that can help us, so we just continue to evaluate them.
And with the free agency process, about 2 weeks out now, what is the timeline for you guys to kind of make internal decisions before you turn your vision outward?
I think we're constantly talking about what we're going to do internally with our current players and our pending free agents in house. There's a window now where we can figure out what we're going to do with those players. Obviously, a lot of them were an important part of the 2024 team, and love to have them back at the in the right situation. And we're working on that as we speak all the time.
Speaking of the trenches, how can you guys improve against the run on defense this next year?
I think we're always working to get better. I think that's really, we're just trying to get as good as we can get in that part of the game, and it's a constant process, and we're continuing to work at it.
I know the commander's tag is important. You guys trade secret type thing. Is there any window you can give us into what you're looking for from those guys?
You want to create a checklist and say, hey, all these things equal commander. It's not really like that. It's an organic process that we talk through, and we have internal conversations about players with our scouts. We have conversations with people at the schools and with other organizations that that we have contacts with, and we come to that determination through conversation. It's not a checklist. It's not all these things that equal commander.
When you talk about those players, it's also part of the entire franchise front office, all that stuff. Have you noticed a difference in kind of how you've been received as a team from last year, this offseason, during the season, playoffs, just around the league?
Sure. I mean, I think that, like you said, we're trying to get commanders at every part of the organization, from the top to the bottom, and on the field, off the field, every part of the building. And I think people around the league respected us coming in here, and I think, they respect us now for what we've kind of started to build here, and we're going to continue to try to just get better and better.
We know that the NFL can be a copycat league at times, and with Eagles having this one and with their line play, everybody's talking about that. That doesn't seem like something that should be out of whack. I feel like that's like a staple for teams. Do you think that's something that's getting almost overblown? Sure, build on the line. Isn't that what people do?
I think everybody, believes in that to some degree. I think obviously there's 30 different philosophies with how to build a football team, how to win a championship. Obviously, Philadelphia had a great season. They did a lot of good things. I think you're always trying to get better there. It's obviously a critical part of the game. And, I think 365 days a year, we're trying to think how we can get better in the trenches,
There were a lot of reports this offseason about you maybe interviewing for other jobs. Ultimately, what made you decide you wanted to just stay in Washington?
Well, I have a great job. I love being here. I was really, really fortunate to have opportunities to interview elsewhere. I really appreciate those organizations, kind of seeking me out and identifying me as somebody that may be a candidate for what they're trying to accomplish there. But I love what I'm doing here. I'm very grateful to Josh and AP and DQ for what I'm doing. That's my part of this. And, maybe at some point the right opportunity will come along, but I'm grateful that I had a chance to talk to those teams, and I'm also grateful to be here.
How much of a role, obviously all the guys you named, the whole team, all of it, but being part of a young quarterback like Jaden Daniels early part of his career?
Well, it's exciting to, watch him develop and be around him on a daily basis and watch him interact with the team and just watch him grow as a player, a leader, a man. It's like I said last August, when we last time we talked to you guys or whenever it was, it's a great building to be in, and I think he generates a lot of excitement with who he is as a player and who he is as a person as well.
As in further development of this team, where did you see right now that this team could get better, or what's some of the main focuses going into this draft?
Well, we have a lot of free agents, and we only have 47 players on our roster, so we have to look at everything again. We have to really address our entire roster again. And, to say that this is one specific area that's more important than another would be inaccurate. Obviously, we like a lot of what we had last year, and we were excited about that team, and we did some good things. And we'll try to get a lot of that core back. But to me, we're addressing the whole roster every time that we go through this. And with where we are numbers wise, we're looking at everything.
You guys, obviously you brought in Luke and Ben Sinnott last year. I'm sure you still have high hopes for where they go, but in terms of building for this year, did you guys see enough from them to say, hey, we view them in our plans in these ways, and therefore we'll build around that? Or is it, hey, they're still developing and we have to build independent of them?
I mean, they're young players that are developing. I think we're excited about them, and they're great people, and they're great competitors, and I think we're excited about their future. I don't think there's any determination at all about what the future holds for them. I think we're excited to work with them and see them continue to grow.
Last year, you guys did a lot of one-year deals. We have a lot of free agents again this year. Like, do you anticipate keeping that same approach, or do you say, hey, maybe in year 2, want to build this more long-term, doing longer deals?
I think every situation is going to be unique and different. I think some of that is driven by the player. Some of it's driven by the organization. I think, like I said, every situation is different, and we'll take it case by case.
Last year you guys did a group visitation, right? Obviously post combine, but you had a group of prospects in to visit one point. Can you kind of look back on that? I mean, where do you pull that value from doing that, having that approach, and then you guys anticipate doing that again this year?
Yeah, I think it was a really good process. I had never been part of doing that volume of players at once. I think that when you see guys interact with their peers and show different parts of their personality that you haven't seen yet, in terms of camaraderie and leadership, you see different parts of the player in a different setting that is really unique in the draft process. So whether we do that again, I'm not 100% sure. I would think we would strongly consider it, but my experience with that last year was very favorable.
Yeah. When you do the one-year deals, and you talk about there's lots of factors, how much does age weigh in on keeping contract terms short?
There's so many different things that are a part of it. But, age is, it's more about how is the player playing, what's his fit on, and it's really about what they're doing for us in terms of production, what we think they'll do for us production-wise. Yeah, like I said, every situation is unique, and the terms of the contract, the length of the contract are off limits. Really not that important.
How nice is it to not deal with the quarterback?
That's great. I feel, really excited about our future. And I talked about last year when we drafted him and felt really excited about where we were going with him, that it would allow us so much more flexibility in terms of building a roster for the future. And we're starting to get into that now. We're all right. Feel really good about that particular situation, which is really, really important. So it allows us to really address the entire roster and have we're going without that uncertainty.
How different is this experience, having had a full year to be in the building as opposed to last year when you guys were building the plane?
It's definitely different. The thing that's interesting is we're still building it. We're still building our process. We added David Blackburn over the summer, so he wasn't here for the last year's off season and roster build. So every time we get together and meet as a staff, I feel like we're a little bit better, have a little bit more, I don't want to say camaraderie, but we have a little more. We're a little more cohesive. We're a little bit more comfortable with each other. We know exactly, how we're going to meet, how we're going to operate. So every time we get together, every time we do something in our process, I feel like we're further down the road, but we're still a long way from the end.
Is there something that jumps out when you guys do meet where it's like, hey, we know this now, or I don't know if there's something specific that comes to mind?
Every part of the evaluation process, whether it's draft meetings, free agency meetings, talking about, just roster in general, we just get a little bit more comfortable with each other, a little bit more confident in our plan and how we're going to, talk about our evaluations, how we're going to communicate with our coaches, how we're going to communicate with ourselves. And, And it's an ongoing process, but, thinking back to where we were a year ago, it's dramatically further. And then thinking about where it'll be a year from now, it's even more exciting.
When you guys signed,
for 2 more.
when you guys signed Marcus last year, you knew you were probably drafting a quarterback. Didn't know what, and it's going to be a rookie. And Marcus, probably one of the higher end backup types. Just the fact that now Jaden is Jaden, does that change, independent of Marcus? Does that kind of change the level of backup you guys might look for this year?
I would say that Marcus played great for us, and Marcus was a great teammate. And I think backup quarterback is a very important position in this league. And you almost look at it, it's not even backup; it's one of your quarterbacks. And we had a great room, and I think you're always trying to be really good in that room.
You brought up Bobby Wagner kind of unprompted at the podium. What does it mean knowing you've got all these pending free agents and how big of an impact they made?
Like all of the players, whenever we bring somebody in, whether it's a drafted player or a free agent, this is the role, this is what I see them doing. And so sometimes you meet them, and other times you even exceed those for what they can be. And so many guys play these key roles on our team. You've heard the term glue guys and things that can, make an impact to others. And there were so many of them. But Bobby was certainly one of those as a driving factor in that. And so he was a really important piece to what we did. Any comments on him? You have to talk to his agent.
Understand.
He is his agent.
As an observer,
I've been waiting to say that so long.
you really built a brotherhood in that locker room. It was remarkable to watch. When you've got a guy like John Allen and the business of football is the business of football, how are those conversations for you as someone that really cares about his players?
Yeah, and I think what I'd like to make sure I'm clear, they established it. And so I get to be a part of it, but it's theirs. And that's so important for everybody to know, because that's not just for one season. It's how they connect, how they onboard people, how the next group comes in, and how important that is. And so this time of year specifically is when football and business intersect, and that's part of it. It's part of it for all of us. And so it's not uncomfortable, because you want to make sure, if you do have relationships, you want to communicate with people, players, coaches, all of those things. But it is this postseason time that those take place. No team is the same year to year. We know that. And so those are always, decisions regarding team and, how do you do it best to get the whole thing together? And it's a puzzle, and it's never one thing and how it goes. And certainly fortunate with Adam, we just talk about the team every day and how we can do things to get better. And so that's not specific to one player. That's specific to the whole thing.
You mentioned Bobby. Do you expect him to be back?
You have to talk to his agent.
You think Pete Carroll's going to try to steal him away from you?
You have to talk to his agent.
With regards to the 28 guys that you have, obviously you want to bring a lot of them back, but what's the line of want to bring back a lot of guys from last year, but we also need to get new blood, improve? What's sort of the range of number for you that you'd like to bring back if possible?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific number, Ben, but what there is it's almost like, I'm not going to call it two free agencies, but there's the players now and that we're here, and how do we, work on them to get them back into it, and then adding new groups into it. So how do you splice those two groups together in addition to a draft class? The other part that we're leaving out is there's going to be a really big jump of development of our own rookies that were in year one. And so as they're going through their first off season together, these big jumps can take place for them. And so we met with each of them individually, and every player to have a plan to say, these are the specific things that we want to do. And not every single one of them is a physical skill or a trait. It might be a knowledge thing. It might be an injury to come back from. Whatever that looks like, that's a really exciting thing too. So I love that those guys are getting better, and then we're adding the group, but there's not a specific number that we attach. Hey, we need 6, we need 10, we need 5. It's more the fit.
Who are those guys that you see as being able to jump into bigger roles next season, of those guys you just mentioned?
Well, a lot of them took on big roles, but there is more to go as you're looking into it, and it will play out as we go, but I don't know if I would say it's this person over this person, but I do see upskilling taking place. A number of these guys are really ready and chomping at the bit to take on a bigger bite. They got to go compete for that. And when you get those chances, these are some people that you'd want to bet on. Like they're ready to get down.
Hey,
Dan, as
Coach,
you evaluate younger pass rushers or even veteran pass rushers, are there must-have traits for you, and are there certain metrics that
There
you
are.
really emphasize?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to have initial quickness. Beating somebody to the punch, Nikki, is so important at that spot. The bigger the offensive line, they're more difficult sometimes. I can't get through them. I can't get around them. So how do I beat a guy to the spot to get him to move, to get under him? So that initial quickness, much like, two people fighting, can I get the shot in? Can I get the punch in? Can I beat them to that spot? And if you have that trait, that's it. You don't have to be, there's not a certain 40 speed. This is an initial quickness, how quickly you can anticipate, you can get going. That's the number one thing.
Hey, Coach, you talked about the defense a little bit. Cal Kennard from South Carolina, you all had a chance to talk to him. You talked about getting to know the people a little bit better. What did you find out about him specifically?
I found out a lot also about like the leadership and what they stand for as a team there. And there's an important message that can go with that and how important that is to us and the people that are here, how hard they're willing to go. Give me an example of something that took place that helped you, make an impact there. What are some things people would describe you as? What are you known for there? And you can tell some people are like, is this guy messing with me right now? But it's an important part to me because I want to find out what's behind the ribcage and what that person has. And I'm not going to find that out in a 20-minute interview, but I do want to know behind them what's happening and what would they say. And is that accurate when we go back to follow up on that? And so it's a great first start to find out how much some of these guys are in and for their teammates, especially in this day and age of transferring and going. And they may be able to get acclimated quicker than some because I already had to do that. I already had to go to another school and learn new people and learn new teammates and learn a new offense or a defense. So I think if you look at it from a silver lining, some of the people that stay, that's good because their connection is longer. But the people that had to move around some, there can be an advantage to that too, where they had to really self-reflect and say, boy, I said I wanted to start over and here I am. And you hear that from some of these guys. I had to put in the extra. So knowing they had to fight for it to get standing here at the combine today and get this invite, that's not easy.
As you start meeting these players,
You want to follow up?
Yeah, and in building this team, assessing them, where do you start from now in just getting better in what you saw from last year, some key points in this year, and how you want to build this team even farther?
Yeah, there's no question about that. That's the one expectation I have, is for us to absolutely, relentlessly go after our improvement. And some of that is skill related. Some of that is coaches defining what specific scheme, what things are we adding, what are we taking out, what do we need to start doing, what do we need to stop doing. And if we continue to do that, not just with one player or 5 players, but with everybody, coaches included, that's when the collective group rises. And that's honestly what we're going to chase really, really hard.
as you start this evaluation process with the prospects, does the immediate success from last season affect the way that you look at potential draftees with regards to guys who have the talent but might need a little time to develop versus guys that can step right in and play right away?
Yeah. I don't want to make it so specific like they have to step into play. I think in that case, there could be a fantastic player that just needed more seasoning.
Yeah.
We happen to had some success for some guys that played a little longer in college. That could have been all sorts of circumstances. You know, the guy had more experience, and I think Jaden's like the perfect example of that, of like all those starts. You saw it. You saw that experience coming. That's not to say another player's, you know, coming out early. It's just customized. The main thing that I want to make sure I can always provide to Adam is that this is the role we see, you know, for this player and how we would play and what that would look like. And I do love that our scouting and coaching staff, you know, connect. Free agent meetings last week, showing tapes together, discussing things like those are cool things. So I was looking forward to being here this week specifically to bond some with the college scouts. They can feel disconnected at times because they're out on the road at some spots when we're high-fiving in the locker room. And you can feel a little disconnected, but make no mistake, like the success of the draft comes from those long drives from one college to another and one game to another, and typing in reports at late at night. So the work that they put in may be unseen, but it is certainly not unappreciated.
Dan, at the end of last year, obviously you're still having coach week to week mode, and the like the disappointment is there because you're trying to maximize what you could have done in 24. Now that you have a little separation and you're thinking about team building for 25, has that created any kind of new appreciation for what you guys just did?
Yes, and I think you're right. There did need to be some space and some separation. Usually at the end of the season, you're tired, and so I was that too. Where you're agitated and what could I, woulda, coulda, shoulda, those ones that keep you up at night. But as the final game took place, there is some renewal also that takes place. And being here is, I know there's an official league year coming up, but for most coaches, this is the start of the league year in a lot of ways, because it does kick off what is going to be an exceptional year. So, yeah, there was now more time to reflect, where after the season, you get right into evaluations, things you like, things you didn't, and now you have a little bit of space to reflect and say, we're going to do more of that, we're going to do less of that, and some things that made a huge impact, like the connection of the team. I would say that locker room, that means more maybe than it ever has in my career, because I saw firsthand how far they're willing to go for one another. So I'm certainly not losing sight of that.
Now that the dust is settled, how does it feel for you to retain most of your coaching staff, specifically Cliff at the top?
Yeah, all of them, honestly. And it's a really strong staff. And they're made up of teachers. They're made up of guys that can evaluate and find matchups to go through it. I love that they want to be part of something really unique here. And together, them, players, staff, we're absolutely going to go after it. Can we create an environment in pro ball that's hard to do? But there's such a big part of that. I feel so supported by them. This is how we got to go to win this game. This is what we need to do at practice today. And so if I say something at a staff meeting and then I hear the player report it back later in the day or later in the week, I know the message from me is going through them and to the player. And so if I hear that back, I know they're supporting that. And that means a lot, because you want to make sure it can't just come from me. It's got to come from me. It's got to come from teammates, the other assistants. So it's a really, really cool group to be a part of.
Two of your young guys have played a lot. Obviously, Brandon Coleman and Mikey. They finished the year at left tackle, outside corner specifically. Is that how you envision them going into this offseason, as to where you guys think you want to play them?
I think I'll keep fresh eyes to see what's the best way for us to play. Nice part, these are guys that are versatile, that can do more than one job. And if I didn't feel that way, I would say absolutely yes. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I've got a lot of faith in them in those spots. But adding value and the ability to move them if you needed to, that's a big part of our game. And I have a lot of trust in them, and a number of guys in this class that, when called upon, they know the power of versatility. We talk about it a lot, and not just for those two, but for others as well.
Hey, Dan. As an organization, do you guys go through free agency and try to identify players with untapped potential, like a Zach Bond or other guys that have that?
Can you repeat the first part?
Yeah, how as an organization do you guys approach free agency to find some of those guys maybe with untapped potential? We've played a lot of snaps, but
yeah,
there's more than.
You want to make sure that bringing somebody in, you saw the traits, say that's it, and can you put the person in position to do it over and over again? The worst thing we could do is bring somebody that we saw them doing one skill somewhere and then going to a new system or a new team and asking them to do something totally different. So it doesn't have to be from last year. Sometimes you go back a year. Let me go back a year before. He blitzed more then. He actually played right tackle in 2022. Those are things that you want to dig and find out. And then you have the discussion, with the ball player when that time comes to say, hey, this happened. Why did you go to this position? So you want to kind of connect the dots in the story. But at the end of it, how would we feature that player if he's here? And it doesn't mean just because he did it one way at that club that he would do it exactly that way here.
I don't know if you talked to Raheem about it, but should the tush push be outlawed? I mean, it's come up again just in terms of what they may consider from a rule standpoint.
No, I have not discussed it with Ra. I'll let the competition committee discuss that. Till then, we're going to find ways to stop it. That's our job.
last year the need at quarterback was pretty obvious. This year, do you see obvious needs?
I think there's always ways to you keep tweaking, you keep digging in. What we have found together is our true north and the types and the style and the attitude that we want to play. So the nice part about going into free agency, there's a lot of roles that are already, okay, yes, he can do that one. So as you get through free agency, then you supplement it more through the draft, we'll rise it. There's needs, yes. How we would feature them, who would go where. I'm also excited about the development of some players too. So all things considered, every year there's some tweaking and adjusting, and we're going to keep digging at it hard.